Phyllis, welcome to Düsseldorf. We are happy to have you here. Phyllis Omido was awarded the Blue Planet Award by Ethicon Foundation Ethics and Economies in 2020 for her outstanding commitment to the preservation of our blue planet as the home of humanity. And now we are so happy and proud to finally have you, Phyllis, here with us. We have the opportunity to update what we know about your struggle for better living conditions and climate justice. And we have all become active out of personal concern. So your struggle is also our struggle, and we want to learn from your experiences. Can you please give us an update about the situation right now, which you are in with, especially with the struggle against the lead factory?
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to the Ethicon Blue Planet Foundation and for the opportunity to come to Düsseldorf. And I'm also so grateful because I've learned so much also by traveling to be here. The struggle for the Owinohuru community started in 2016, and quite unfortunately it continues even today, though what I believe that in a just and moral society this should not have taken as long as it has. We won the case in 2020, I believe around the time that I was given the Ethicon Blue Planet Award. And we believed that this was the end, but unfortunately, 2 state agencies went back to court to appeal the case against the Owinohuru community. And therefore, the case is still at the appeal stage. It has been postponed severally. And just on the day that we were traveling here, we received another email from court telling us that they have postponed again from 6th of this, it was supposed to be on 9th of this month to 4th of next month. So unfortunately we have very little control over the dates that the court gives us. So we always have to accept what they say. For the Owinohuru community, this means that they continue to live in an environment that is highly polluted with toxic chemicals. It means that the children will continue getting more exposure, and those that are already sick, it delays their chance at getting their health interventions, because many of them are still suffering from high levels of lead, which has caused a lot of other health complications. And therefore the struggle for a clean and healthy environment is not only a struggle for the planet, but it's a struggle for the people, for their right to life, their right to health, their right to access water, for their socio-economic rights.
So the lead melting factory has been closed down,
Yes.
but it's now about giving compensation for the many people who suffered unspeakable damage to their health from the poisons of that lead melter, right? So what are you now planning as next steps?
For the Owinohuru community especially, the court gave us 2 sets of awards. First, it awarded us $12 million US, which should go to compensating the community. This is money that the community will use for their health especially. Then they awarded our organization, Center for Justice, Governance and Environmental Action, $7 million US. This money is to go into cleaning up the community. The community sits on 13.5 acres of land with 800 homes and 3,500 people. So we have to restore all these homes, remove lead and lead elements from the roof, because our testing has shown that there's very high lead levels on the roofs, in the soil, on the vegetation, on the walls. So the court gave this task to my organization, Center for Justice, Governance and Environmental Action. And so we are taking 2022 to plan. We are raising fundraising to build our own capacity, because this is a very huge amount of money and a big task. And therefore we are now in a phase where we are fundraising to build our own capacity to be able to absorb this money and to do this work, because this is also a test, I believe, from government, that if we fail in any way, if this money is misappropriated, or if we fail to do what the court has asked us to do, it will be used against the civil society for generations to come. It will be a blow to environmental movements in Kenya. And therefore we have to be very perfect in the way we implement what the court has put up upon our shoulders. And therefore we are taking this year, even as we go on with the case, we are taking this year to prepare. We have already put on recruited additional staff, and we are creating an international committee of experts, people that have done remediation in other areas of the world, and people who have more experience in handling environments that are contaminated with lead poisoning. So we are putting up a 10 expert committee, and then increasing our capacity in terms of our staff to be able to handle the big task ahead of us.
Wow. That sounds really like a very, very big and important project.
Yes.
And my next question is about the resistance movement in your country, and what role does it play in networking in your own country, and perhaps even beyond Kenya?
So one of my legacy projects has been to create a network of land and environment defenders in Kenya. This is because we realized that some of the, through our experience, some of the things that we went through, especially security issues, is not only tailored to Center for Justice or our activists, but we realized that almost every land and environment defender working in Kenya was experiencing the same threats to their lives, criminalization, and repression. And every time land and environment defenders take on powerful corporations, they are met with resistance, not only from the corporations but also from state agents.
Yeah.
Therefore, for us, it was critical to come together and form one unit, and with the partnership of other foundations like KIOS, the Finnish Foundation for Human Rights, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we managed to put together a network of land and environment defenders that is represented across 47 counties, 40 organizations, and more than 80 individual defenders are part of this network. This year we are expanding to East Africa. We are trying to bring in also land and environment defenders from East Africa, because they are facing the exact same challenges. And therefore we come together to share our experiences, but mostly we try to build the capacity of our defenders to be able to very quickly respond to threats against them, and to be able to buy them some kind of leverage, some kind of time when they come under threat. So we train them to expect and to develop protocols for themselves, so that when these threats come, they know how to protect themselves and how to defend themselves. But quite unfortunately, last year alone, we lost 3 land and environment defenders in Kenya. 2 of them were shot, and one was hacked to death. So it just speaks to the fact that we still have so much work to do, and we still have to do a lot of advocacy for people to understand that defenders are not a threat to anyone. They are not defending their own rights, but they are defending the rights of everyone. in Kenya and on the planet, most especially climate activists. We find that most of them are very young, and most of the times they do not understand the threat, the risks that they are taking by standing up for the planet. Therefore, we are trying very much to cover that gap, to identify them early and prepare them for what the role that they are taking up in society.
Yesterday we were in the Rhenish lignite area where the energy company RWE does as it pleases. You saw the destruction also here in Germany, and you got an impression of what is currently our most important environmental struggle here in Germany. Do you see parallels or connections to the core problems in Kenya?
I was horrified, actually. We assume that Germany is a more enlightened society than Kenya and Africa. And therefore, for me, it was a big shock to look at the scale at which the environment is being destroyed in such an enlightened society. We assume that Germany should know better. And as the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. Countries like the US and Germany must take up their role in being a leader in the fight for climate justice. They cannot degenerate to the same level as African countries, because if this happens here and the political elite condone it and support it, what do you think the political elite in Africa will do? So for me, it's quite horrifying, the scale at which I saw environmental destruction. Areas that have so much ecological significance in Germany, areas that future generations would depend on in food production and other ecological benefits, are being destroyed for profits. And the activists that are standing up against this are not getting enough support from government, especially. For me, I find it so hard. It's very hard for me to relate to this happening here. It very much sounds like the global south. This is a scenario that would fit in the global south, but not in such a society. And therefore, we stand very strongly with the activists in Luzerath, and we would call more attention, especially from the international community, to holding the governments, especially of developed world, to their 1.5 commitment. And I believe strongly that losing Luzerath has a very big significance on whether Germany is keeping to their 1.5 commitment or not. And therefore we need all the UN special rapporteurs, for example, to look at the case of Luzerath and also make their stand on that issue, because it has great significance not only for this for Germany, but also for us in Africa. Yes.
Well, you answered the next question already. Thank you. Which was well, looking at the power of a company, of the companies, who obviously are the central problem here, as well as in Kenya. What conclusions do you draw from this, and do you see starting points for improving the conditions?
I think the starting point would be in, I think the civil society organizations have to push for change in policy. Because just like in Africa, I see very strong connections between the political elite and the big companies and big corporations that are working here in Germany. And there really has to be a separation between state and corporate. because once that becomes a gray area, then there's a lot of injustice, because the people that the people that have been empowered have been given the responsibility by the citizens to protect their rights become quite it becomes quite unclear whose rights they are protecting, because they would lean a lot, because of economic benefits, they would lean a lot towards protecting the rights of corporations and mining rights and all that over the rights of the people, the rights of communities to exist, to continue their way of life, to continue with their socio-economic activities. And some of these activities would be like farming, you know. For me, it's horrific that a farmer would be taken away from the soils that all their generations have farmed on and lived on as a socio-economic activity, and be uprooted to a different area where they have no ecological knowledge of this area. They don't know which plants would do better in this area, and they are just uprooted with no second thought from the political elite. I believe it's a big letdown, and I think it is time that the people, the civil society especially, pushed for policies to be passed that would stop politicians from having personal interest, especially in such corporations, and that if there is a clear point where they have interest, they have economic interest in such corporations, then they should step down from representing the people. I believe maybe that in some ways Kenya has more progressive laws than here, because we know that this happens, but then we are able to hold these people to account because of our constitution, separation of powers, and also the Bill of Rights that is in our constitution. The other thing is the recognition of the right to a clean and healthy environment. The UN Human Rights Council has now recognized this right. Kenya recognizes the right to a clean and healthy environment in our constitution. I believe Germany does not, and the US does not. And therefore, the opportunity for them to do it is now, because this is the legacy that they are going to leave for the next generation. They have to recognize the right to a clean and healthy environment for citizens of their country and for future generations. And we are expecting that they would support when it comes to the voting at the UN General Assembly, that will get support from the US, Germany, China, you know. For a change, they should make a stand for future generations.
Well, actually, Germany also recognizes the rights of future generations, but it does not always respect them. That's why we last year had a case in the National Court where the government was forced to change the law, a plan for future energy supply, because what they presented did not consider the rights of the future generations. So they had to change that. We have also a movement which gets stronger and stronger to plead for that. And especially in Lützerath, we had a long talk with Fred and other activists, and they also consider that what we do here is connected with what happens in the rest of the world. Climate protection is not just something separated from what else happens. It must go hand in hand with climate justice. That's what they really underline many times. And the discussion of our way of life, of living in the global north, is closely linked to the overexploitation of the resources in the global south. Not only of mineral resources and raw materials, but also of the so-called human capital, especially the exploitation of labor force in the world market production size. So it might be surprising for you that such a statement comes from Europeans, because we take all the profit of this global economic system. But some people here also are in that struggle for a general change, system change, not climate change, is one of the most used sentences in the movement. So you also already explained something you see as the role of social movements. And we have to get connected in Africa, Europe, and all over the world. You're small, I say small organization, but I think it's big in comparison with Ethicon Foundation, Ethics and Economy. We are interested to know a little bit more about your NGO, Center for Justice, Governance and Environmental Action. Besides the efforts to get fair compensation for people who have suffered from the lead poisoning, you focus on more issues and political struggles. How many full-time and volunteer people are you, and how do you finance your work? I mean, that's also a very important question, to get the funds.
So we are a small organization with a very big impact. We have 6 permanent staff. We have a board of 10 Kenyans who sit on our board, and we work in the whole country. When we started, we were registered in 2012. We started working only in one community, in Onohuru. Then we expanded to the coastal area, that is 5 counties, and now we are working throughout the country. We receive funds from a lot of NGOs, international NGOs. Our main funder is Finland, the Finnish Foundation for Human Rights. We respond to calls for proposals, and we also receive donations from single citizens. We have partners also in the US. We get also funds from the UN, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and other such foundations. We do not accept funds from politicians, and we do not accept funds from corporations.
Yeah.
That is because our work largely has been to monitor corporations and how they execute their work in relation to the right to a clean and healthy environment. And therefore we feel that it would compromise us if we were to receive funding from corporate bodies,
Yeah.
most corporations. So this is how we raise our funds. I think the first funds that we will receive from government is the award that we received from court, to be the first amount that we receive from the Kenyan government. That's why I say there's a big responsibility to us on how we execute the work that was given to us by the court. Center for Justice now receives complaints, environmental complaints from the whole country. And therefore this has forced us to work very closely also with state agencies like the National Environmental Management Authority, because it's within their work to ensure that environmental complaints are addressed. But we have small staff, but they work really hard. We work 5.5 days. We work until Saturday half day, and then Saturday the afternoon and Sunday they don't come to work. But you'll find that my staff, most of the days they're in the office, even Sundays sometimes, because the work that they are doing is so critical sometimes. And the complaints that we get sometimes are so critical that you cannot postpone them.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is little about Center for Justice. Yes.
So we come to the end of the interview, and I would like to ask you, What kind of support would you like to see from societies in the global north, especially from the social movements?
We would like to get more awareness to the people. I strongly believe that politicians know what goes on, but I believe that there's a lot of maybe ignorance from the public in terms of where, for example, the end cycle products, especially that are used in the developed world, where do they end up? Our struggle in Uhuru stemmed from the dumping of used lead acid batteries in Kenya. These batteries were collected from everywhere in the world and then brought to Kenya, cleaned up, recycled, and then 99% pure lead was exported out of Kenya. It means Kenya was a dumping site for the toxics. Then the pure metals are exported for use. This would not have gone on for so many years because this happened from 2007 to 2014 when we managed to shut down this smelter. And it wasn't just, even though a lot of exposure has been given to one smelter, but in general we closed down 17 smelters in Kenya that were importing waste lead acid batteries, cleaning them in Kenya and exporting pure lead out of Kenya. So it would help a lot if the consumers within the global north insisted on knowing where the garbage is disposed after it's used, especially electronics and batteries. Center for Justice worked with, we have very strong partners also here in Germany, like Oiko Institute, the Ethicon Foundation, and we worked with the Oiko Institute in doing a research in Africa on used lead acid batteries and the effects in 5 countries in Africa. And it was very horrific, and we decided to pass a resolution at the United Nations UNEA, the 3rd UNEA, on recycling of lead acid batteries in Africa. And we got very strong opposition. I think we did not sleep for weeks trying to convince especially the global north to support this resolution, because it meant life and death for our people. And we were asking only for people to take responsibility for any environmental harms that come out of their waste products. So it was a very logical request that we were making, but we got a lot of opposition from some of the member states, and we ended up passing the resolution gratefully.
Okay, let's try to pick up the red thread. Well, where do you currently see the biggest challenges in the global struggle for ecological and social justice? And what are the important next steps worldwide to be taken?
The biggest gap is with the political elite. They utterly fail their citizens. And this is not only in Africa. It's happening all over the globe. They are refusing to take into consideration the future generations and the ecological damage that they are causing. It is only those in power that can hold the corporations to account, because they have the power to do that. Corporations do not listen to citizens. It doesn't matter how much civil society organizes. If we do not get the politicians to wake up, it's going to be very hard for the citizens. And therefore, the biggest gap now is with the politicians, especially people who hold power, that are denying denying climate change and the ecological damage that is happening. It's unfortunate that the worst signs of climate change are happening in Africa and not here. But what you do here has direct effects on our people. It is not raining anymore. there's massive droughts, and then when it rains, there's massive floods. Our people are losing their livestock. Our people are not able to grow their crops anymore. We are not able to feed our own people, especially the poor, the most vulnerable. And it's going to destroy Africa if we keep going like this. There is no time to waste. Our people are dying because of climate change. It is not just talk. It is the experience of our people. We wake up in the office some days and people send us horrible pictures of the pastoralist communities having lost thousands of their livestock to hunger, of women dying. There was a case where there was nothing for people to eat, and a mother was boiling stones to cheat her children. She was boiling stones because the land is now unproductive. They have nothing to feed their children. And therefore, for me, the 1.5 commitment has to happen now. We cannot postpone it. It means life or death for our people. And we cannot live on a planet that tolerates the death of Africans as if it's something normal. It has been normalized and people think, it's okay, these people are always dying. But they are dying because of effects of the decisions that are being made here, where they have no control over what you decide. So we have to actually become more conscious and aware of the decisions that we are making, especially those that touch on the environment, on water, on pollution, on emissions. We must take into consideration the planet as a whole. We cannot say because we don't feel the effects, we can still pollute, we can still make bad decisions. That has to change.
Thank you very, very much, Phyllis. We are on your side.
And we are very grateful for partners around the world. I know that many people are working day and night because of this issue around the globe. And we have been largely successful because of our partners. The fact that you work hard in raising our issues and raising our profiles, giving us award and recognition on the international platform. This is what has enabled us to make the achievements that we have done on the ground. And therefore, we are very happy and grateful for our partners. And that's why, despite the negative footprint, we decided that after the pandemic, it was good for us to visit Europe and all our partners so that we cement our position and say thank you, and say that we still need a lot of partnership. We still need to highlight these issues. We have to keep pushing the governments, the member states of the UN, to act to protect the environment and our people.
Thank you again.